Hey everyone, how's it going? Tuning in live from San Diego. We're here in the marina and just wanted to check in with everybody. And I thought this would be a good time to talk a bit about safety on board New Horizons. And then we'll also talk a bit about being quarantined on a yacht. Starting up here in the life jackets, and it's generally a good idea. And in fact, in the US, it's required to have one life jacket on board for each person aboard the vessel. And now we're going to go down below. I want to show you some things down here. So, something that we have many of all over the boat are fire extinguishers. And right here in the master stateroom, we've got one right behind the door. And some of you might be thinking, fire on a boat? You're surrounded by water. Really? Is that an issue? Well, it can be. So it's very important to have fire extinguishers. You can see we've got another one right over here amidship. This is right next to the stairs as you come down from the cockpit, the companionway, some people call it, which is called an EPIRB. And it's an emergency position indicating radio beacon, which is a way to emit a signal to satellites to release a Mayday signal from just about anywhere in the world. And it's recognized internationally as a Mayday signal. And it provides GPS coordinates so that search and rescue can come and rescue us in the event of an emergency. It also provides them with relevant information about the vessel and people on board, any health conditions that they should be able from rolling out to leeward. And then moving aft, this is actually a section of the boat that we haven't shown you yet in any of our episodes, or right here as well. Again, that's just to make sure that they are spread throughout the vessel and readily available if we need them. There's one more right here in the galley, as well as one underneath the sink in the galley. And that's it for the fire extinguishers on board. Now, while we're speaking about safety at sea, another crucial element to being safe on a boat, especially when you're offshore, is being able to communicate. To a certain extent, cell phones work, but fairly quickly when you're sailing offshore, they will cut out. So for the most part, on a boat, cell phones, you might as well deem them completely useless. If they work, great, but don't ever rely on them. It's much better to rely on one of these. And this is a VHF radio. And this is a handheld version of a VHF radio. That stands for a very high frequency, and it's useful for line of sight communication. So if you can see the antenna of whoever you're speaking to, then you'll be able to hear each other. And it's only good for one-way communication, meaning that you can only one person can speak at a time, unlike a telephone where you can both speak simultaneously if you chose to. For long distance communication, we have something called a single sideband radio, which is right here. And these are effective for communicating almost anywhere in the world. You really can communicate over thousands of miles using a single sideband. Additionally, a more modern technology that we use on board New Horizons is satellite communication, specifically with this device. It's called a Garmin InReach. And what this can do is it can send and receive email and text messages, and you can also get weather updates, which, not to mention, we can also do with the single sideband. We can send and receive email and get weather updates with that as well, but it is much easier, faster, more reliable with this. A few other things worth noting are having a life raft on board, which we currently do not on New Horizons, because thus far we haven't ventured too far offshore. We're always within, say, 50 miles or so of shore, where search and rescue, but we would really be more concerned about having one if we were going to go further offshore, particularly cross any oceans. And jack lines are another interesting bit to talk about as well. Those are safety lines up on deck that you can actually tether yourself into. They're particularly useful for solo, single-handed sailors, and for night watches. If you're the only one up on deck and everyone else is down below sleeping, this way, in the event that you fall off and nobody else is aware of it, well, it couldn't happen. You wouldn't fall off because you'd be tethered into the boat. And now just a bit to speak to you a bit about being quarantined. The funny thing is, our day-to-day life on New Horizons is a lot like being quarantined. We're either living at anchor or on a mooring, or even here in the marina. For the most part, we're really not around people much at all. We tend to be very well provisioned at all times. So we stock up enough food on board for about a month anyway in day-to-day life. And so the idea of social distancing and being self-sufficient, isolated places, we have kicked it up. So anyway, I hope that was informative. And if anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and we'll do our best to reach back out to you. Until then, be well.